Welcome back to Civilization 6 Abridged. In the previous part, we went and conquered America, gaining us loads of extra towns relatively easily. I then thought I can use these towns to build up and out-economy the other civilizations. Turns out though, that I couldn't, partially just because I didn't do it very well in terms of deciding where to build things or whether to build things at all in many cases. So, we're now behind, we're not going to win at the current rate. We have to do something, and I've got a two-part plan to try and recover this situation. Part 1 is to focus on tourism, which will mostly happen in the background and in the future, because we don't really have much capacity to generate tourism at the moment, need some future techs that are coming along. In the meantime though, I had another plan, and that was to just attack the Aztecs and try to get a couple more towns to improve our economy that way. I knew the Aztecs wouldn't have many units, so I felt pretty safe just attacking them. Interestingly, they notice I'm about to attack them and give me the opportunity to declare war there. I don't know if that's a good idea because you bypass the casus belli system, so maybe we just gained tons of that warmongerer penalty again. But as mentioned before, it appears that we have enough of it that we effectively have an infinite amount. Nobody likes us. We're going to just have to carry on that way. So I'm now attacking the Aztecs. We're having some trouble though with the old 2-range conundrum. I'm sure there's more to it than it being a set amount of range. So we can't attack this town with the various things that look like they're 2 tiles away from it. The plan was to have the cannons take out the walls and then the infantry take out the town's garrison. But even that isn't quite going to work out as I thought, because there was one major factor I overlooked in this plan. While I expected no actual units to be here, the towns are effectively units in that their garrison acts as a unit and it's automatically upgraded as technology advances. So we can see here we're facing some rifle troops defending the towns, so attacking with my classic hoplite crossbow combination is actually very ineffective. So even here where the town is barely defended at all, I expected to just walk in and take it. We totally can't do that. Maybe you could do that in an old civ. I was sure I'd be able to just storm forwards and occupy the towns. Well, at least those bombards can do some damage once we get them to point-blank range at the very least. What we actually need to do is spend more money. I've upgraded some of my hoplites to pikemen, as we can see there, so that's a superior unit, but it's still far behind the times. Everyone else has rifles and vehicles and such. But we can just spend some more money to turn those pikes into an anti-tank crew, and that's going to be more like it. We'll have at least one unit that's at our current tech level. Actually making more units is virtually impossible just because we'd have to invest like 10 turns of a town's production to get another unit, and we've desperately got other things we need the towns to do. We spent too much of the game making units already. We just have to do something with the units we have, and that will mostly involve spending money to upgrade them and then just hoping they never die. A quick peek at the tech tree allows me to see that the Aztecs are only slightly behind us technologically, so if they were to make new units, we actually could be in trouble. We're going to very much rely on them just not doing that, and us somehow managing to take their towns with what we have. The anti-tank crew though proves extremely effective. We can take off most of a town's health in one attack, so that's a bit more like it. And then the town on the verge of death can be taken by a hoplite charge. We immediately lose most of them by the looks of things, but then one guy makes his way through the town, killing absolutely everybody, and with that the town is captured. So that worked, I guess, and as long as that unit gets to heal up, the damage won't matter too much. But we can't take the other town nearby even without its walls. We need to get our units back to our territory, save up some cash, turn them into a real unit over time, and then come back to it really. These crossbows and hoplites aren't very useful, although one thing we can do is have the crossbows shoot the town. This won't do any damage because they can out-heal any damage you do, but it does level you up. You get experience for inflicting damage on a town, so I'm going to be doing that in the background, a nice cheeky grind. And here I am, following my own advice, going straight to making a builder in the captured town, so that we can finish off the local improvements. It would have been better, I suppose, to bring a builder down with the invasion force to immediately add any improvements the AI hasn't done so far, or get destroyed in the fighting. I think some of them can disappear while the fighting is happening on top of them. Not paying close enough attention to know, of course. Maybe next time I invade somebody, I'll learn even more lessons and do it just that little bit better. I tried to do the tech steel boost now on Congo. This actually failed in the end. I think it was in the next turn it said so. And it means Congo now hate us because they know we've been spying on them. So that's useful. Here's a move towards our tourism strategy. I've put my policies together to generate more of the great artist type points. Although actually this is a great writer. There's writer, artist and musician as separate things. And they create great works which are then stored in your theatre districts or our Acropolis districts for us. So now that we have this book, people will come and look at it, I suppose, and that's going to increase our tourist score. So we want as many of those types of things as we can and as many wonders as possible to increase our tourism rating. We actually have quite a high rating, although we're still second to Congo in terms of the rating, and we're third to China in terms of progressing towards the victory condition. Not quite sure what it all means, but we're definitely in the running there. I feel like with a bit of focus we can become the #1 tourist destination. We just have to become way better than everybody else to actually win. Now as for our attack on the next Aztec town, it actually took so long to set up for it that they built walls around it, annoyingly. However, our bombard cannon easily dealt with them, and then our anti-tank crews deal with the not particularly tank-like defenders. Still seems to work out just fine. After that I decided to peace out of the war, because I wanted to heal, and I didn't feel very ready to push on. I was worried that if they made a unit, we'd suddenly be in trouble. I don't think we really needed to peace out of this war, but there was an ulterior motive I'll get to in a sec. One thing to note is that I almost peaced out without doing that cede territory thing. I didn't realise you have to explicitly ask them to give up their towns in order to keep them after the war. Now the other thing, well, I don't really have good footage to show it, but somewhere along the way I got a suzerainty bonus of a city-state for having loads of envoys there. That gives me some boost to science if I'm not at war with anyone. I think I got it during that war just now. And this added about 50 science per turn to our science production. That's quite a big boost, like 15 to 20%, so we now have an extra incentive to not be at war. Although that said, after taking those 2 towns and ultimately not losing anything, I realised that with a bit more preparation we might actually be able to make a serious invasion of the Aztecs and get more stuff. So we're going to be going back on our peace deal pretty soon actually. We've got the class struggle civic going, always a good choice, and this allows us to become communist. This presents a couple of advantages. We can have more policies, which is just an advantage overall, so just going to any advanced government is good. And in particular, our merchant republic system isn't any good to us really. It's giving us extra trade routes that we're not using. Being communist gives us extra strength in battle and extra production on everything. That's pretty handy. And now we're skipping to, well, I'm just finding a reason to go to war with the Aztecs again. I don't know if the peace deal had a duration or anything, I didn't check. I just went back to war to see what would happen really. We're doing this war of territorial expansion, which is essentially a casus belli that we just always have against our neighbours due to some civic development. And here we go. In the intervening time I've upgraded the army a bit more, so we now have all of these field cannons instead of crossbows. The problem is they're still an anti-infantry ranged unit despite being a cannon confusingly, so they don't do very much damage to walls. It's the artillery here, the upgrade of catapults, that does damage defences. I'm kind of wasting my time here though, because I had it in my mind that I needed to take this encampment tile before I could take the city, only because that's what I'd done before when I saw an encampment. But I now know, if you just attack the city and ignore the encampment automatically falls as well. So you'll see I'm going to be wasting quite a lot of time and military resources trying to take that random tile on the coast that we totally don't need. And our lack of artillery in general is going to slow down this process as well. I really need some more, but it takes a really long time to produce them and they're really expensive to buy, like 1,500 gold or something if you just want to buy one outright without using production on it. So we are doing this the slow way. Handily, with the Aztecs having no military, we do have time on our side. In the background, those great people points keep on coming and we keep whipping out the great works. Soon, every significant thing that's ever been done in art will be here in Greece and they'll be forced to come look at it. You could do some stuff micromanaging which paintings are in which galleries. They combine together in certain ways to give you extra tourist points sometimes, but we won't look at that. Here we are taking that next Aztec city. Took a while. I almost actually didn't go on to keep fighting them, just because it was so tedious to take that city. It took a long time. Our victory is inevitable but slow, because you can't move very far, you can't shoot very far, the things have lots of health that you have to grind down over time. and the end turns take longer and longer the later into the game we get. Well, here's another tourism progress moment. We've made the Hermitage wonder at Washington. That's both a wonder and an art gallery, so we can really get the tourists to come look at that thing. Skipping ahead now, here we are shooting down the next Aztec city, and as you might note, there is no resistance really. The cities are slightly damaging us with their city attacks, but we can just out-heal it over a couple of turns and then keep going. Annoyingly, their territory is organised in various blobs here and there down the continent, with no roads in between them either, so it takes a while to travel between them. They've got some muskets defending their capital, so there you go, they did have something in the end. Although they don't do very well, suffice to say, and we go on to take their capital. I suppose what the game probably needs is for the AI to be able to say, okay, I surrender and just become your vassal or something. The Aztecs did offer peace a couple of times in exchange for money, but only if I gave them back the cities I've already taken, so the AI isn't very able to sort of negotiate its way out of its quite inevitable demise here. We just keep going. There is no way they can stop us taking everything. The only thing that might stop me at this stage is that I can't really be bothered to do it after taking that next town. We have to spend many turns moving over to the next blob and then many turns attacking the next one. I discovered there, by the way, that we don't have to take that encampment. It automatically goes onto our side after taking the town. A useful discovery that would have sped up some of the previous conquests for sure. Anyway, we'll just keep going. Here's another tourist-related wonder for us. This thing, I think, reduces a debuff to tourism you get from religious tourism later into the game. So essentially, the fact we have no religion might not be a problem, and any religious relics we've stolen or got will still be valuable later on. We're already generating tons of tourism actually, but you have to have more tourism than everybody else has domestic tourism, which isn't shown there. I eventually did find the menu where it shows you all that, so we'll look at that at some point, I expect, in this footage. Now we're going to skip ahead again to me taking the last of the Aztec towns. This was not an easy process, again not because they had anything to resist me with, but because it took over 2 hours to go from where we were at the start of this war to here. I'd love to be able to just vassalize the Aztecs and have their stuff contribute to my score instead, something like that, and let the AI control this stuff, because the more stuff I have, the longer the turns will take even further, because we have to micro these places as well. At least we've now secured our continent. We're the only main faction on it. There's even a little bit of space left to throw out a couple more colonies if we like. So that's all very nice. Now we sit back and go into nothing mode again, because with all of these extra towns, this time we really can out-economy the rest of the factions. We've got the most science generation and the most culture generation. Throwing down those beach resorts there should help us generate more tourism, I think, anyway. We're going to use traders to put some roads in the Aztecs' territory, since they hadn't done it themselves. That might be handy. We need to use the traders to connect to the other factions as well. That will increase our tourism. Here's a semi-pointless scouting mission that's been going on for a very long time. That's why it's still Hoplite is doing it. They have just been finding out what the other continent looks like. I wasn't allowed into China's territory though, who control the top end of the continent, so we don't have much line of sight there. Grabbing another useful great person to add to our tourism score. We also have the chance to take a Great Admiral. Wasn't too interested because we don't have any ships right now. We can actually pass on taking the Great Person, in the hopes of getting a better Great Person later. We want a Great Person from the Information era who will buff all of the end game ships, because that's the only type of ship we're likely to have at any point. So I did that. Whether that was the right call, well, I have no idea. Here's another step to improve our tourism score a little bit anyway. We can set up a national park. I had hoped to have lots of national parks, since we do have various parts on our continent that aren't really built up. Turns out though, there are some complex rules for where can be a national park. You have to have a diamond of at least 4 squares with a certain beauty score to it. That usually means it has to have mountains nearby and such. Well, it turned out there were no other places on the continent that were suitable to be a national park. Had been hoping we could throw down quite a few, but no, so I did waste some money buying extra naturalists as well. I finally worked out how to recruit archaeologists. I've been waiting to do it for ages, hoping a tech would come along allowing me to do it. I've been able to do it for a long time. It was just only from certain locations. You have to have an archaeological museum in a place first before you can recruit them. That will allow us to pick up some archaeological stuff, which works in the same fashion as the Great Works, just increases your tourism, all good. The bad news is that China has advanced the science victory once again, making a hydroponics base on Mars. I think colonizing Mars is the objective of the science victory. So they're taking me by surprise here. They're not even the leader for the number of techs researched or the amount of research being generated, but they're just the only ones actually doing the science victory. So if we leave them alone, they'll gradually win very sneakily. Here I finally took a look at this detailed culture victory screen, and it essentially lays out how far away we are from a culture victory. We need to multiply our foreign tourism by like 10 times to be able to be culturally dominant. We do have loads of tourism, but most of it is domestic tourism, which doesn't count towards our victory score when it comes to the culture victory. I don't really know how to do this other than to have even more great works, more trade links. Maybe we're hampered by the fact that the sea is between us and the other factions. That might reduce tourism. Here's another discovery. I realized you can build military engineers that do various useful things. You can put roads anywhere you want, which is quite handy. And there I'm just putting a missile silo down on the front line right next to yellow. Just in case, just threatening them there. We don't have anything to shoot out of it, but maybe they'll get the idea of what I was going for with that one. Following the discovery of the detailed culture victory screen, we can of course look at the science victory screen as well, and see what China are up to. They've done 2 of the 3 stages of the science victory, and they've started doing the 3rd as well. So they've gone quite far along, and yes, they'll win if we don't stop them. And it is going to have to be us that stops them, simply because the other factions don't seem to care too much. They should also be trying to invade China or something to stop them from winning the campaign. I'm guessing the AI doesn't necessarily pay attention to if somebody's about to win and gangs up on them. No realm divide style scenario, anything like that. Well, we're skipping ahead pretty far now. What I essentially did in response to this is find all of my military units and move them over to China's border. There was a strip of land on the other continent where I could move without going through anybody's territory and get to the interior where the mysterious Chinese nation lies, and we're just going to form up right next to them and then invade as soon as possible, do whatever we can to stop their science victory. We could destroy their spaceport or capture it, or just blow up all of their stuff in general so they can't keep going with that project. I can even use my sneaky scouting hoplites to go into China from the other side and raid some territory or something. Looks like they spotted me doing that build-up. We're just going to ignore them. It's pretty obvious what's about to happen to them. It took a good 20 turns to get the troops over there, and during that time, we finish both the tech tree and the civic tree. We absolutely dominate our generation of culture and science, so there we go, we're at the very end. The issue I had though is that there's very little that's interesting at the end of either trees. Once you get to future tech and future civic, the repeatable final thing, all it does is increase your point score, and that only matters if the game isn't won by anyone. It goes to a victory on points at the very end, and we are totally set to win that. So if I just pressed end turn for a few hours, we might win if nobody else does anything especially interesting, although we probably still need to stop China. What I was really disappointed by is that the tech tree ends in roughly the 1980s. We don't even have things like the internet, which I thought would help out with our culture building and our tourism stuff. We end up with very little you can do. I seem to remember in the old Civ games, you could go further into the future with your tech, and your future tech research was helpful. Like, it increased the happiness of your population if you just kept doing it. Here, well, technology is over. We're stagnant now, we're stuck in the 80s, but we've got our military vehicles from the 80s and we can at least use them to do something to China. Here we are, totally set up for it. We've now got rocket artillery instead of artillery. They're also going to be buffed by an observation balloon that's on the way, which increases their range, getting around some of my constant complaints about not being able to shoot and maneuver and things. Well, we'll leave this part here. Essentially, I suppose there'll only be one more part. The plan is to take down China, and after that, we should be in a position where if I do absolutely nothing, we'll still win. We're going to just make victory inevitable with one more war. At least, that's what I think's going to happen. So, there'll probably be just one more part. It might not even be very long if it all goes very smoothly. We'll find out. My morale actually dropped quite a bit once I found out that the Civic Tree and Tech Tree weren't going anywhere interesting and were going even less far than I expected. I wanted some nanotechnology or some genetics or something to come along, maybe unlock some interesting options. But no, very unfortunate. I have been disappointed with this game overall, but it's still somewhat interesting to play. I would like it if it was way faster. It's taking so long to make any progress whatsoever. It's rather inconvenient. I don't know, maybe I need the difficulty to be higher so it's more action-packed or something, because the other factions certainly don't appear to be doing anything really. Well, as I said, next time we'll probably finish them off. Thanks for watching this RPG gameplay commentary. Check out the playlists on my channel for more.